Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, we're going to talk about the next stage of the United sale that is now moving forward as we progress into a third round of bids, unfortunately. Talk about some of the frustrations that Ten Hag is having and the effects on summer plans. I tweeted something about this last night and that I would be covering it today. I have some actual specifics on it I want to talk about, and some of it is starting to come out, but yeah, have some specifics. So let's get right into it. I'll try to make this one a little bit short and sweet, and we can go from there. So starting, stay where you are, camera. The final round, this third and final round of bidding is moving forward. There are some things that I'd heard that indicated that, at least one party, I believe the Qatari side, were feeling confident on the progression of things moving forward. There was, as I understand as well, a bit of a conflict where Rain wanted to move forward with a preferred bidder and Glazers would like to get into another round and see if they can squeeze out every last drop, and that is exactly what is unfortunately happening. Rain thought they'd have it wrapped up by Easter. The decision was set to be made on Easter, and the decision has been made by the Glazers, and it is another round of bidding, but this time a final round. The positive of it is it means that the club is likely to be sold, that the minority investment offers were not sufficient as expected to solve the problems that are present at Manchester United right now, and wouldn't be enough to essentially fund everything that needs to be funded. And so again, the positive is we're still most likely to see the sale, and that is the outcome as we've expected for some time. So I was trying to look up something to go over here. Let me just pull it up as I get into the next steps. But I think the sale is going to happen pretty much for sure at this point in time. Again, it's looking that way. Third and final round, I would say at this point, I would certainly lean towards Qatar being the outcome based on the things that I've heard. But it's not done. They're really trying to push it up to that 5.5 mark. But again, final round, end of the month. It should, based on the things that have been happening around, it should be the end at that point rather than moving then into a month of talks and just going straight into it. There's a very detailed bids, due diligences, and discussions, compliances, all sorts of things happening. So I think that parties involved are approaching it like if it's accepted, it's like everything is ready to go. And hopefully that would mean still before the end of the season, it's on its way to being wrapped up where they can actually operate how they want to. And at that point, they could be coordinating our sales in progress. We're going to be buying this person, doing this. They could give money to the manager. They could do all these things. It would be a difficult process, but hopefully that would be what happens. Because let's get into that with Ten Hag, because there's some things I've heard and been told in recent times that are extremely frustrating. I tweeted last night that Ten Hag was becoming very frustrated with the situation of being hung up on his summer plans. I'm told he's very upset about it. He had understood things should be done in April so that it wouldn't hold up summer. It's holding up a lot of things, including departures of players. So you see these stories about wanting to clear out 13 players. Facts. They've spoken to those players. They've spoken to those agents about leaving. Those agents are exploring moves for them. What's the problem? They cannot approve a departure until the sale process is moving forward fully, because who makes the decision? Joel Glazer. And he's still holding a lot of things up until that point in time. So departures getting held up where agents are trying to find clubs for these players, but they cannot really approve things and move forward. And so, of course, the clubs that are looking at them are thinking, look, if you can't give us an answer, we're going to go on and talk to other people. There's considerations and issues of staff not knowing if they're going to be there come summer and how that affects things, including in the recruitment area and potentially looking to leave. There's specific players they've been talking to. I had heard a while back about their interest in Vitor Roque from Brazil, a striker. And they're actually, and I'll get to that in a second, But they've been told essentially by representatives around him that they would need some more final words before the end of the month, or they'll be, potentially looking to go to other clubs that are in talks with them. And that would be the case for a lot of signings, especially, ones out there that there may be a competitive market for. You think about all these midfielders: McAllister, Caicedo, Declan Rice, Kudus, Gabri Vega. Most all of them are going to be in talks with multiple clubs, and their agents are going to be saying, look, we want to know that you're going to be pressing ahead with a deal for us, for my player, or we're just going to move on from this because we need some finality, even if their preference might be, or they might look at Manchester United. Situation with Enzo Fernandez in January comes to mind because United would have been very interested in him if they had been able to do anything. And it's all held up by Glazers. I've talked a lot about this in the past, but everything goes to the Glazers. Murtaugh can't make promises. He can't move forward. He can't do things without the Glazers say so. And right now, they're not just holding things up on the sale, but very difficult to reach, very difficult to talk to for Ten Hag and people at the club. It's a problem. I mean, it is a serious, serious problem at the moment. It is a serious problem at the moment. And so, it may lead to them looking at different things. It's not that they can't do anything this summer while things are held up, but with all the plans that you have, striker, 2 midfielders, center back, potentially a right back if you can get to it, goalkeeper, a lot of it is dependent on departures, talks with players, finding clubs for players, contracts, things like that. So there's a lot of things that are being held up there. And the departures is a big part of that, a big, big part of that, because it will hold up progression. Even if there's, Jurrien Timber wants to join, it's interested, talks have occurred, can't do anything because they need Harry Maguire to leave and Eric Bailly to leave. And a lot of that is going to be held up by this situation. And that's going to push a lot of the further down signings on our big list to later in summer after the takeover, should things progress the way that they should. Talking about the striker situation, this is an area where I know they've been moving on it anyway. From my information, Murtaugh's spoken to Daniel Levy. They've had talks around Gonzalo Ramos. I believe talks are set to occur around, Victor Osimhen. Talks have occurred around Vitor Roque. And so those talks are kind of occurring, feeling them out, getting the gist of the situation, their willingness, costs, all of that. But it is, same thing. They should have money on a striker because it's not departure dependent, but you take someone like Vitor Roque, well, they need to be able to progress on the other talks. They need to find out about other potential departures. They need to settle the Mason Greenwood situation to see about, are they getting 2 strikers? Are they getting 1? What's happening there? Loans, even with Amad Diallo, Hannibal Mejbri, Facundo Pellistri. What happens with those players, will affect how the spending is done up front in summer. So they've been having talks with or at least check-ins with the parties around these major striker targets to see what they're doing. But it is getting, held up. And that is one of the, situations that they have at the moment. And so, that's where things are at right now. So it's really going to depend on that, on the striker front, and and really hearing what happens in all of those different areas to make decisions on how to move forward. So there definitely is some issues here, the progressing in that area, but practically every other spot is going to take some time. The good news is that, as I mentioned, most all of this is pointing to the indication that it's going to be, at the end of it, that it's going to be sold. And if that is done, then there will be significant funds that can be made available and a lot more flexibility. But at this point, it may be later in summer, and they may lose on a number of the targets that they're looking at that point in time because they've moved to other clubs. And so it's going to just make the situation a lot more difficult. And then the other final factor that does hold things up, regardless of the Glazers, is Champions League qualification. Has a big impact on revenue. There's the Adidas money. There's that they lose $40 million without that qualification. 40 million yearly without the qualification, and then there's obviously the 30-40 million in lost revenue. So that has a huge effect on FFP limitations, no matter who owns the club, because it's the income of the next year. So that makes a big difference too, and that is something where part of the problem is there's a lot of frustrations, there's a lot of difficulties, and it's going to be, they have to get that sorted as well at the same time for income, especially with the takeover not occurring. It's almost a necessity to spend money that happens under the Glazers ownership. So that's something they got to wrap up as soon as possible. So, if they can get the takeover, if they can get Champions League qualification, if they can do everything, the idea would be to get that big striker in, to get a top midfielder in, McAllister. You see the links to Jude Bellingham. I think it's entirely unrealistic, but if there was infinite funds, maybe. I still don't think so. It looks like Manchester City or Madrid will get him, but Caicedo, McAllister, Rice, these are all expensive players, and to have that kind of money, you need that qualification, and you need the takeover, and you need departures, you need to sell, you need to move Donny van de Beek, you need to move other players, you need to get these players moving out to bring in Urian Timber, you need to do all of that. So it's really quite held up at the moment, and it's going to cause problems. It will cause problems for the summer right now. The best thing that can happen is have a few wins, get a lot closer to securing Champions League qualification to settle that aspect of it. And then hopefully the parties, be it Qatar, Ineos, whoever, at the end of the month, if they win the bid, they move fast and they get it done fast and they can take over fast. And then, in May, a lot of decisions can be made in conjunction for the summer. But as of right now, it is holding things up. It is slowing down the plans because there's been a lot of work done on players and lists and agents and all of that. But everything is kind of on hold until at least the end of the month where it's been settled. And it should have been settled by now so that they could, at this point in time, start actually making moves, which is what they wanted. Okay? So hopefully that tells some of what's going on. I wish it was better news, but they're ready. Essentially they're ready to move on things as soon as they can. And we just have to hope 2-3 weeks from now it's like practically done to the point they can actually start progressing on those things in conjunction with the new owners. Okay? Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next one.